Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. I'm your host, Wendy Nystrom, with my co-host, 𝑗𝒊𝒏𝒈. Today's special guest is Christine Marez. She is the Vice President of Energy and Sustainability for Cumming Group. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you for having me, Wendy and Joel. Very excited to be here.
Anytime. And what I love is I've known you for a few years now from the LA Metro Sustainability Group, but talking about schools and the goal to go net zero, no one's talked about that. We've done almost 200 episodes of ESJ now, and we've never talked schools. So why is this so important?
It's so interesting. I've been, before I was at the Cumming Group, I spent many years on the owner side and 12 years working for LA Unified School District. We built, as you know, 230 new schools at the time, and putting my project manager hat on, when I came to Cumming, I switched to sustainability and really focused. But my passion is really schools and working now towards like a net zero roadmap and helping them to become net zero. And it's been an evolution with schools in California, all the way back from 15 years ago when, you know, there were recycling programs in school gardens, and really parents and students and the community was trying to integrate sustainable measures into their schools. And then there was the whole Prop 39 Clean Jobs Act from California that infused millions of dollars into energy efficiency that we all worked on. That was amazing and started that process.
Energy efficiency is actually hugely important because, as you guys know, we often have these little flex times and power outages. So being more efficient with our energy helps everybody overall. But when you say schools becoming more sustainable, what can schools do on their own? Like little things they could change about their everyday activities that could maybe help a little bit more?
Schools, you know, the environment itself and the educational environment is meant to be collaborative, and every opportunity used as teaching moments for students and teachers and, you know, administrators as well. I was doing some research for a conference I was at yesterday, the Green Schools Conference in Pasadena, and I found this very interesting metric. It was, if you add up the energy usage of all the K-12 schools in California, it is the equivalent of energy produced in 18 fossil fuel power plants.
18?
18. Now, you can look at it like shockingly, or you look at it as an opportunity for the amount of influence schools have to reduce their carbon footprint.
Yes.
If we got all the schools on the path to net zero by 2045 to align with the state goals, just imagine how much of an impact, almost as much as, maybe not as much as transportation, obviously, but a huge impact. The good thing for schools is that they really do depend on funding, right? Their budgets are already limited, or passing of bonds for construction. But there's so much money flowing into California now from the bilateral infrastructure law, from the Inflation Reduction Act. You know, all these programs are now coming to fruition. So schools are going to be able to replace their antiquated HVAC systems, to electrify their fleets, to increase water conservation, to put EV chargers everywhere, to add solar renewable energy to the sites. And they're already doing it, but what they don't have and what's missing in my opinion, is the connection and viewing it through the lens of carbon reduction, viewing it through the lens of what is their emission footprint. And right, they're sort of been piecemealed. There's like energy efficiency here, and, you know, school garden here, and waste program here, and bringing it all together so that the boards can see, here's our footprint and here's where we want to be in 5, 10, 15 years.
Now, you mentioned, okay, actually I have like two things I want to talk about here really quick. So I read an article not too long ago that there was a school, and one thing that they were doing is, because we know just the heat that comes from the school grounds. So there was actually talk of like doing a paint, and I think one school did it, where they were painting or coating all the outdoor asphalt. So that way, one, it cuts down on the temperature that's being created, but also kids can be outside, because that's another issue that I have so much.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
Like, you let the kids outside when they're roasting on concrete, and that's all they have to play on.
Concrete and asphalt, right? I mean, I even think when we went to school, concrete and asphalt, that's what we did. And
I remember.
rubber
Yeah.
mats
Yeah.
that was supposed to protect you, but they scalded you if you landed on them. And I'm like, whose brilliant idea was this? Like,
Or do you remember this? Do you remember the smell on hot days? Like
Yes.
you smelled like they were like roofing something, or I
Yeah.
just remember that now.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
It's
right. A lot of what we do is, and this is also a lot of the architects and designers now for the new schools are designing one, permeable concrete, so that is much lighter and brighter, right? Two, putting shade structures. A lot of it can be solar shade structures. So,
yes.
wherever possible. There is one client I have in Anaheim that is putting huge solar arrays. It's a huge solar project we're doing for them. And they put these ground mount carport shade structures all over the playground so that they can have spectators there on the sidelines while they're under the solar shade structure to
Oh, I like that.
watch games or have lunch or, so there's so many innovative ideas.
And they can
But you're right.
And they can also make them look good. Like, I mean, they don't have to just look like these barren, flat things. Like, there's companies coming out now where they look like trees, and they look like sculptures as opposed to just like a flat panel on a bar. Like, let's at least make it look good. But I guess so. I want to go back really quick to you talk about the budget. So this is kind of like one of my big issues that I've got. I have a lot of soapbox issues, but this one is one for me. The schools are so underfunded, like drastically. Like, I mean, whether it be from like books to school supplies to trying to find a school with an arts program. Like, we've gone from STEAM to STEM. So I have a real issue with arts not being taught in schools. How do you budget to go to work on the carbon neutrality when we're trying to figure out how to pay for school supplies and teachers? Like, that's got to be a tricky area. How do you do that?
I can't tell you how many schools that we've worked in where the entire sustainability movement was prompted by students demanding that the board take action. And more now, where administrators and faculty and, the facility managers sort of like, okay, now we got to rush because these students are kind of plowing down and demanding for this. The interesting thing about climate and sustainability learning, it's very hands-on, right? Mm-hmm. There are things that we can do around energy efficiency and the big ticket items, the electricity side that they don't see. But so much of sustainability is touch and feel. The things that come across, so waste programs. Now, I understand limited funding, and I do, but when we're doing something, what we want to do is we want to increase and connect people, and we want to create a committee, and we want to create outlets for students to have voices and participate, which doesn't cost money. These programs are already, a lot of it is volunteer time.
Oh, well.
But their passion, but for them to be involved and have a voice and to learn, we create these programs and we bring them together and we pair them with teachers. And yes, it's teacher time and that, but so much of it, honestly, Joel, is volunteer time. Like, they want to be involved. And then, getting policies passed, like their commitment, that doesn't cost money either. If that helps, if that contributes to what you're thinking.
It does, and I think it's actually fascinating that a lot of it is volunteer time. I think that's wonderful, and I love hearing, because I think this is what we're seeing across the board. I'll leave it at that. But the younger generation is coming in, and their voices are saying, enough of this stuff. We have to go. We have to worry about our generation now. Like, you guys had your chance. It's now our turn, and you didn't do it for us. We have to do this now. And their voices are really coming out there, and I think it's incredible. It's giving you guys such a push to do these projects because.
Well, also to add in on Joel's comment, so children growing up, I like to use the seatbelt story. No one wore seatbelts in the 70s and early 80s. In school, I was always told, wear your seatbelt. So I started nagging my parents to wear their seatbelts. I am hoping that with students getting more active with sustainability, net zero, and carbon reduction, they'll start nagging their parents. Hey, can you start recycling a little bit more? Can you start using less energy, using less water? And then we'll have this overall effect, which also brings me back to a point where you talked about people are doing piecemeal. Yes. So most corporations are also siloing sustainability. They have a waste expert, they have certain water expert, et cetera. We have to have this as one group. The second you silo, people are going to have different agendas and different bosses and different things. One group together and no more piecemeal, then you'll make progress in the same direction. And that's actually what needs to happen.
It's interesting. I want to address the generation. My two daughters in their 20s now, you know, have grown up, you know, and I sent them to schools where, you know, they went to a Jesuit Catholic school where they were taught to be activists, you know, and they were taught to have a voice. And they're constantly, for my generation, I'm the last of the baby boomers, you know, 1963. We were the hardworking, right, generation. We did whatever it took. We did, you know, we're the hardworking. The challenge with our generation and climate change is an education. You know, it's an education and just not being aware. And all of us in the industry, you know, we understand carbon, we understand emissions, you know, it's a lot of information, and climate change is so broad, right? It's the sustainability is such a broad field. So trying to get our generation educated is one effort. Mm-hmm. Then to have the next generation understand that if you just educate us, we will go to work for you. Like, get us on board. We are the hardworking generation. And I think it's through our work ethic as well that we've taught our children and we've taught this next generation that level of work ethic as well. So that is also there. So these are all good things. You know, what I've seen in the industry since January, let's just talk about how fast things are progressing. Certainly in, you know, political or not, there were 4 years there where we sort of went underground with our climate efforts, right? And climate efforts got pushed to the, yeah. Well, we didn't take a nap, actually. We were super progressive at the local level, almost in defiance of, like, we're going to do it anyway. Yeah. And so that has been building for 4 years. You know, mayors did their pledge, 40 mayors around the world, and they kept working. And then when the floodgates opened in January, when all the policies, the federal policies came to fruition, it honestly was like drinking through a fire hose. The amount of requirements, the amount of policies, the amount of funding, the amount of work. So just this year, I have seen in schools a turnaround from the board saying, all of a sudden, we need to know where we are on the emission scale. This is now a relevant conversation. I think it's just going to keep going.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I worked in environmental risk for 20 years, and I had even people I reported directly to. So my own managers were like, you know, environmental is going away. Nobody cares. You know, you're gonna have to learn something else. And I'm sitting there like, okay, no.
Now, do you find, since it's obviously this is something being pushed by the kids, and the kids are the ones who are kind of like spearheading and pushing this whole thing, how hard is it to get some of the parents on board with this as well? Because climate change is, we all know that there's people out there who don't agree with it. They don't think it's as bad as it is. It is there, but it's not something we have to address. How do you get the parents involved with what the kids are looking for?
That's interesting. So think of, the parents are going to get involved because their jobs, the work they do and what they produce are now going to be fully integrated in climate. Like, they don't really have a choice. Okay. And I'll give you an example. You know, when there's waves of things happen in the country and you create an event that's a disruptor event, call it like that. So in 2018, you know, and we'll talk about, this country's built on entrepreneurship and everything we do is about making money. You know, we are that country, you know. There was a shift in the financial market in 2018 from BlackRock when Larry Fink wrote a letter, and CEO, he said, climate risk is now financial risk. Yep. It was a huge disruptor. And in the corresponding years, millions of dollars from the banks have been only lent to sustainable companies. It forced the Microsofts, the Amazons, the Intels to start coming up with their climate, and Google to start coming up with these huge goals, right? That started a push that has trickled down to everyone, to like everyone. Yeah, we're like, well, they have the money to do it and everything. But just recently, you know, and then the whole oncoming of ESG, environmental social governance regulation, which has for a long time been in Europe and the UK and, you know, those countries that are 10, 15 years ahead of us. It's okay. We have offices on both sides of the pond. So, you know, it's sort of like we write an ESG statement. We all have to agree. You know, they're like, come on, America, let's get with it.
That's awesome. We're like, we'll get there. Don't rush us.
We'll get there. And, you know, we have pride. So we're like, no, we're getting there. Like, we're getting there. It's such a competition. But I think what you're starting to see is that even in down to supply chains and materials, and it's just been this, when you tie it to the money,
Yep.
one is there's money to be made, there's jobs to be created. The oil and gas industry, come on, they have been planning for this for years. They have been, redistributing their focus behind the scenes on clean energy. How many of the shells and all of them have clean energy programs and have bought in, so I'm all for everybody making money. Let's just do it on the clean energy side. Let's just do it on the side that supports climate change, right? It's sort of interesting. So when you mention that, like parents and my generation, I just got a notice from one of our big corporate companies that our ESG statement in our company is not good enough. Like they want us to now track like business travel and tell them how many emissions. And so we, in sustainability, we're so excited, this is great because we want to take that extra step. So there's really having a trickle down theory of being integrated fully, no matter what you're done.
I think that's the only time I've ever heard somebody say trickle down work. I will leave it at that.
I thought of that. I remember riding my bike around when Reagan was campaigning for president.
But it's so funny because it's so true, and we say this all the time on this show. It follow the money. If there's money to be had, that's the way the change will happen.
Yep.
We are in a capitalist society. Let's just call it. It is what it is. And nobody begrudges anybody making money, but if you're doing it at the expense of somebody else, okay, we kind of got an issue here. So to hear that these corporations I love that you guys were actually pushed to just say, come on, bring it on. This is all you got. I think that's awesome because it also pushes you guys to do more.
That's right.
That's the way this should be. We should all be pushing each other to make it a better world. How hard is that? You'd think it wouldn't be that hard, but it is. But I love what you're doing back to the whole school thing. I'm still in awe of this generation that's out there now that is saying, get your crap together. Change this. We have to do this. I love that there's a passion from this generation to really push for a better world like that. So let's go back down to when we're doing the schools now. What do you see as the biggest hurdles when you're working with either an existing school or building a new one?
The silos, right? So a lot of times, everybody, we all work in silos. The maintenance people and facilities people are focused on buildings. The capital program is focused on, the education side, the nutrition side. They're all working. It's really us creating, there's programs in California now for K-12 schools that are bringing them together by way of standards, right? So DSA, which is District of the State Architect, and NBI, which is New Buildings Institute, came out with a decarbonization buildings guideline this year to help schools sort of align around a standard. Schools need to be told what to do. Like, we're going to go for net zero. We're going to follow the state guideline. We have to comply. Regulation and compliance pushes everything. Policy comes, funding comes, policy comes, and then people act. So as a consultant and, someone who's passionate about making a difference in schools, my job is to inform and show the value of creating a strategic plan or net zero roadmap for them. And the value I bring has to be that they're going to show savings. They're going to show savings in the cost of their operations. It has to pay for itself and beyond. Right? There needs to be other benefits like accountability and transparency now. So schools have for a long time had to operate, to be totally transparent to their board and their constituents and the parents and the teachers. It's demanded. So this allows them to say, hey, we are putting ourselves out there and we are making these goals. And then they will be held accountable to those goals, which is very motivating, right? You can't have results if you don't measure something.
Yeah.
So I really see the challenges as, the conversations, the silos, bringing people together, creating those charrettes or forums where we can listen to what students want or parents want. And part of that is just listening, right? And then figuring out where all the pieces of the puzzle fit.
And I'm hoping that the money that gets saved actually gets put back into the schools.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be kind of like the perfect win-win scenario for everybody. I mean,
and it does. So I'll give you an example. When we did the Clean Jobs Act, and you had $550 million a year for 5 years that went directly to K-12 to upgrade systems and, make systems perform. They saved money and they reduced their footprint without realizing they reduced their energy usage. But the savings, like we wanted the savings to go directly towards maintenance, right? Like, but that oftentimes doesn't happen. There's ways to do it, but mostly it goes back to the general fund. Well, so what? So then now teacher salaries can be increased and they can buy more supplies. So there's no downside to where, you know, the money is going to be saved and it's going to give them more opportunities on the budget side.
That's awesome. That's great news.
Can I just go back to when you said you were at a conference yesterday in Pasadena for green schools? Can you share with us anything that blew your mind when you went there? New technology, new things being developed?
It's a great conference, by the way. We go every year. We've been doing it for 8 years. It's between that and then there's another conference in Sacramento, the CASH conference, the Coalition of Adequate School Housing. Crazy name, but it's really the biggest conference where we get facility people and maintenance people together. So first and foremost, it's the right people there, right? It's the people who are in charge of these systems, who have the vision. It's not the board members. There's other conferences for that, but it's the people who have to every day try to make that HVAC unit work. Or so one of the big area in this was waste, right? It was the organic waste compliance that people are just confused about. So in the area of waste and complying with that and having their waste haulers understand, there was a big push for that. We do that as well. And I mean, our session on net zero roadmaps was very well attended. I think people just like hearing net zero. There's a certain comfort level about knowing that we're actually going to do something that's making a difference. I really find that. There's a lot of technology being developed around electrification, right? And EV chargers. There's a lot of money coming in for EV chargers, and it has its own challenges. How do we get enough charging out there? How do we put these infrastructures in place for zero buses, zero emission buses? We all have the same problem. The world has the same problem. It's not unique to America. But we're finding, like, we were talking to someone that just does kitchen equipment and the evolution of having kitchen equipment that's affordable, that's all electric. Because kitchen equipment in schools is the biggest natural gas user, right? Unless you have, boilers and things like that, but really it's your kitchen equipment. So if you want to be net zero, you've got to, move away from gas into electricity, right? So there was a lot of that. What else did we see? I thought the interesting thing was, there's a section they have on awards, and there's so many of our generation, or my generation rather, of these facility directors that are getting these visionary awards for climate change, or their vision for taking the school, like where they have a net energy footprint because they added solar and they pushed through all the naysayers and they got it done. And that was really rewarding to see.
That's awesome.
It was great. I think anytime, you have to recognize, award, motivate people who are out there doing something.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and especially pushing past naysayers, because I think all of us can agree it's been a bit of an uphill challenge up until very recently to get people on board with climate change and sustainability. And just quick question though, any interest in hydrogen gas?
Thank you for mentioning that. So yes, hydrogen. In fact, I mentioned this yesterday. Today, we're talking about electrification. We're talking about some of the alternative fuels like renewable diesel, right? It's coming out. It's out. We do a lot of work with Metro, so we're very on top of the alternative fuel market. Hydrogen in 5 years is going to be like us talking about alternative fuels, right? It's not there yet. The supply is not there yet. It's getting there. I think it's going to take about 5 years. I know Bloom they've created hydrogen fuel cells, which a lot of our clients want, our larger corporate clients, but they're not readily available. And if you put one, you've got to find the supply, and that's not readily available. I think I say maybe 5 years or less, that technology will be more both affordable and more of the supply.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know that SoCalGas is doing a lot with hydrogen. They built the Angeles Link, which goes from the east side of California to the west, and then you have the hydrogen hub, which I have a couple friends working on that. I have some friends working on that. It's incredible what they're doing.
And so much money is being poured into that. I know we have clients in San Diego. We have a lot of public clients, and they're interested in. They called me the other day, just getting involved in the conversation. They want to know more. They want to know how they can create a hub in San Diego. Like, who should they partner with? It is. It's so rapid, honestly. It's,
Oh, yeah.
I just hope I keep up with like all the conversations, right? And having these really relevant conversations about what's happening, because you can't,
And the terminology is always evolving. I talk often that, I actually did a post called "You're Not Stupid." The terminology keeps changing, because in any industry, you're going to have your jargons, your acronyms. And I just so people understand, the messaging has been the same. The words may change, but the message is there. Just try, it's constantly evolving, constantly changing, and rapidly, thank God, in the past couple of years. It's amazing what's happening.
It's so important to, I recognize this a lot. We have to just speak at someone's level and not like dummy it down, not like that level, but really so that you want to have some thought be conveyed and understood. So we talk about emissions, scope 1, 2, 3. People don't need to know scope 1, 2, 3. We need to calculate it, but they need to know, you're going to focus on energy, you're going to focus on, your fuels. And then we also want to focus on like your travel, your water, your waste. And you got to make it real for people so that they can understand. That's partly the goal.
Yeah, that's everything we do here. I mean, when Joel and I first started this 2 years ago, I banned acronyms, I banned jargon, and I'm like, I want it to be an inclusive conversation so everyone will understand. Because experts like us, we can talk our own lingo all day long, and no one's going to know.
So
and we do, right?
I'm not the expert, so I'm always the one who's going, wait, what? Yeah.
No, you do not. You understand.
I'm the same way, though. I'm the same way.
I mean, I feel like I have so many more things I want to talk to you about, but I know we're running out of time. There's just this whole project, or what you guys are doing, it's really awesome, and I love that it's coming from. I'm still going to go back to it. The fact that you're being pushed by kids.
Yeah.
I really just hope people are paying attention to that fact, that it's like we have to get off our butts because they're coming, and they want us to change. And so the work that they're pushing for, and that's causing you guys to do, and then it's just awesome. I don't know how else to say it, because, and we see it on the news, we hear the articles about it, but to actually get to talk to you about it and hear your experiences saying this is coming from the kids, it makes it more personal for myself. And so it's just, I don't know, it's really just mind blowing.
When I was on the LEOC program and we were building schools, it was you wake up every day and you're like, I got to go to a job that's making a difference, right? That's the reward in itself. Right. And now in climate change and sustainability, like, I'm proud when people ask me on an airplane, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm in climate change, that's what I do. But talking about the next generation. So I had to learn a lot of this, even though I'm an engineer and I knew the solar and I knew the energy side, I had to learn the rest. But I hired really smart people on my team. And the majority of my team are in their 20s and 30s. And a lot of them are in their 20s. And I hired a lot of my team members out of college. And not all of them had the degrees that, environmental policy or anything like that. A lot of them just had a passion for sustainability. So we brought them on and they learned it. And we'll send them off to get a certification. They just finished carbon accounting classes. And I feel so proud, they all like I always say, good job and you're so proud. But I feel so proud of my team that we work so well together, and you see the passion and the projects they want to do. And my job is to go out and find them the interesting work in the project so they can learn more. They're doing net zero projects and they're doing like a lot of stuff for Metro that's very cutting edge. Yes. But it is very inspiring, Joel, to see and to be with kind of that next generation. And, we have debates on, the social aspect of sustainability is really that other big part that we should definitely talk about, in equity. And they come in and they have all these ideas and they have all these judgments. And then they're all like, well, you guys aren't doing enough. And I'm like, whoa, okay, let's talk about what we've done. It's just very enlightening and very fun.
That sounds fantastic.
And it's so great to see like your joy and your pride, like your face comes through as you're telling these stories. Like, I mean, it's really inspiring to see and hear about.
Oh, thank you. You guys have made my day and reinvigorated me for, I was just saying I need 5 more hours in my day, but I'm happy to do it.
It's 9:30 in the morning. We already made your day. We're off to a good start.
It's a good day to be here. No, I mean, seriously, Christine, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're crazy busy, so, even half an hour is huge. I want to thank you, and please, guys, check out Cumming Group, check out Christine, check out the work they're doing for schools, actually everyone for net zero. It's not just schools, but her focus today was that. So thank you again. I'm Wendy Nystrom, Environmental Social Justice, with my co-host Joel Vendette. You guys take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.